Coming up, why I'm never changing anything ever again.
You're listening to Double Tap, your daily accessible technology show. Now, here's your hosts, Stephen Scott and Shaun Preece.
Hey guys, welcome along to another episode of Double Tap. Shaun Preece, how are you, my friend?
I'm hurt, Stephen Scott, by your lies. Why did you turn this episode into an episode of lies? I'm never changing anything ever. You do it every 6 weeks. Rip this out.
I
put
don't.
that
No,
in.
I don't. You see, you think this.
did.
I am.
I don't think it. No.
As I've
Sorry.
told you before, words are not deeds. Okay, so I tell you, I want to change things all the time. I don't actually do it all the time. Once a year, I rip out my studio.
Yes.
I clear out all the old cables. Because I don't know about you, right? But when I clean out my studio, and I think we all have this in our homes, whether it's behind the TV or whatever it might be, there's just those dead cables that just lie there. Things that have been plugged in.
Yes.
And then over the years, I'll take that away, but I can't be bothered pulling this unit out to get the plug out. So I'll just leave the wire.
I've got a bad back or bad knees. I'm not.
Exactly.
Not
And then you
crawling
think,
behind.
and so suddenly you go in the back and you think, why have I got 12 things plugged in and only 3 things active? And then you realize there's a lot of dead stuff in here. There's just plugs plugged in for no reason whatsoever. So that was my thing, was just pulling out all the cables. And I've been simplifying the setup a little bit. And this is what I do once a year. I tend to refresh things a little bit as we head into a new season.
Change it up. A new season, new fashion. That's
new
right.
Season, yeah, exactly.
That was so
Redress the
last
room.
year. Yeah.
That's right, yeah. So last year. So yes, I've gone minimalist this time.
Oh, what do you mean? How minimalist have you gone?
So normally on the desk behind me, for those that might remember, have been watching on YouTube, you might have seen like big monitor speakers, lots of, so ableist. Then, big monitors,
monitors,
computers, big hard drives. I know, exactly, right. And I realized something. All these monitors that were sitting on my desk were always off. So
They're basically just shelves for you.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, basically, I have a monitor in front of me right now, which is an Apple Studio display. There's a webcam holder. That's basically all it is. It's a webcam holder. A very
Worth the
nice
money.
webcam holder, I will admit.
You're so designer.
I'm so designer. My webcam holder is, $1,500. It's ridiculous.
Okay. So when you say minimalist, do you mean you've got rid of some of your monitors?
All of them, yeah. So I have on the desk behind me, I've got I don't know how much of it you'll see, but I've got the MX keys. Well, I don't think you can see much of it. I think I'm covering it. But the MX keys keyboard, I've got a little mixer for my audio, and I've got my Lenovo laptop, and that's it.
You've gone totally screenless.
Not only gone screenless, I've gone Macless over there as well.
And oh wow,
I'm
so sorry,
news moment.
Mr. Tim Apples, if you're listening. We can only apologise. Well,
He's too busy giving gold iPhones to who.
Stop it. Oh, that's really cool. Okay, so what's the problem been? You said you're never changing anything again. It sounds like it went like a dream.
Actually, do you know what? I was kind of expecting chaos, right? Because normally when I start doing this, there is a period in the day, and I did have that moment in the day where, I sent you the message, the obligatory message, actually.
Yes.
I've had enough. Why did I start this?
Correct. I'm sat in the middle of a room covered in cables.
Yeah.
I don't want to go on. Yes.
But I think it wasn't quite that bad. But, I got to the stage of thinking, do you know what? This is getting a bit ridiculous. And anyway, so I sat down, had a cup of coffee, and I felt better, carried on, and I actually managed to get the whole thing done in a day, which is very unusual for me. Normally it's a day of ripping everything out and a day of putting it all back in again.
Yeah.
And then that whole kind of, have I done this right? Am I happy with this? But no, it all kind of came together rather nicely. So yeah, quite quickly got the thing done in the day, because we had recorded a few shows in advance so that we could get ourselves ahead of the game, which is why we haven't touched on certain, let's just say, topics that are bones of contention out there at the moment, which we will get into today, I promise.
Dinosaur-sized bones of contention.
Yes, rather large, shark-sized, yeah. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But as I say, we had to really get this done, so that's why we want to get ahead of ourselves and give ourselves a few days.
And we did get it done. At the end of the day, it's done. Well done, Stephen Scott.
But you, I believe, also decided to do a bit of refreshing yourself.
I did. Yeah, well, I've been having a few glitches over the past few months. And, you just get to that point where you think, it's Windows. It needs a clean. Right, let's wipe it. Let's knock it down.
I thought we were going to talk about your medical history. Right, okay.
No, stop it and start again. So I did a refresh of my Windows PC. hit that start menu, type in refresh. And I think actually it's changed it now. I think it says reset this PC.
It's reset now, isn't it?
Yeah, but either way, we'll get you there. And you can, just totally reinstall Windows, either keep your personal files or, as I did, the nuclear option, just wipe everything, start from fresh.
Yep.
And you know what? It went fine. Absolutely fine. Not a problem. But then you realize I'm setting this up as a new PC, right? Oh, the amount of stuff that you forget. And it's not until you try and do something, as we just noticed then when we tried to start this recording.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I haven't got this installed. Oh, wait, that's not set up. And there is so much stuff to do after you do that. I am looking for, let me say this right now, another request. I need help from our great listeners. I'm looking for a way to make a system restore image of my fresh, clean Windows install. And then, later on, I just want to throw a pen drive into my laptop and restore from that. And I don't have to go through all this again. Once I've got all my drivers, all my software that I need all set up, I want to make a backup of my Windows and simply keep it there so I can chuck it back on at any point. Trying to find an accessible cloning or system image software.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the challenge, isn't it? It's all very well saying there's tons of software out there that might do it, but it's the accessible option.
Yeah, and I had a whole conversation with, it was Copilot actually. I need accessible cloning system image software. Oh, well, try this one. This is specially made. No, it's not. I think I tried EaseUS. That was one that said it was made just for accessibility. I couldn't even get through the installation. That was even accessible, wow. So I gave up with that. Of course, you got things like Acronis True Image. I even struggled trying to find what to download from the web page. So yeah, I did find one in the end called Terabyte Drive Image, and it's very accessible and it seems okay. It doesn't create an ISO, it creates its own proprietary thing. So I've got a feeling I'm going to have to, I'll look into it a bit more. But so far, Terabyte Drive Image is the only thing I've found, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So if anyone's got any recommendations, let me know. feedback@doubletaponair.com. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because the iPhone kind of has that, right, built in, which is cool. So you can, every backup that's done, you can get your phone back to where you started. And it's funny that never really translates to the computers, even on the Mac. The closest you've got is Time Capsule.
Right, yeah.
Which is one option, or Time Machine, I should say, which is where you can have a hard drive connected to your Mac, and then you turn on Time Machine, and it will just periodically back up the Mac, so that if there's a situation where you lose a file or you've deleted something and it's gone, you can go back in time and get it. And you can also reset your computer back to that. So that's one way of doing it, and it's all very accessible. There's also Migration Assistant, which is more about moving to a new computer. So if you were moving from one to the other, you could then say, well, I've got my desktop Mac Mini, for example, all set up exactly how I like it. I'm going to set my MacBook up the same. You can just connect them both, either over Wi-Fi, over Ethernet, or even cable to cable, using a Thunderbolt cable, and you can just set them up, and you just migrate or copy that system to the other, which again is really cool. Not perfect. There's always a few teething problems, and it's usually around licensing of software.
Yes.
So you've got to be careful. A lot of people have tried, I think, to can I just have the same software that I've only paid one license for, but can I have it on two machines? And it's like, no, you can't.
No, it always rings the mothership. It checks its
checks in.
It checks in, yeah.
So no, but the PC one's always eluded me a little bit with that. I mean,
I seem to remember on Windows, wasn't there system restore points? What happened to that? Is that still in there? It just popped in my mind.
It is, yeah.
System restore points.
Was that for that kind of purpose? I guess it might have been, yeah.
I honestly
usually something
can't
because I remember you used to use it when something would go horribly wrong. You'd say, okay, do you know what? I'll take it back.
Roll back to another
2 days ago. Yeah.
But there is something built into. See, I'm running Windows 11 on everything here, and there is something in Control Panel for system backup and restore, but it specifically says Windows 7. And I did go through it, and it's doable, but for some reason it didn't work. It failed somewhere, through the process it failed. So, and it just seems like this should be something directly built into Windows 11 or Windows 10. Why is this still something we're going back to the control panel for? But there's so many instances where I can say, why is the control panel still there? It just feels so old.
I like the control panel. I was in there the other day for sound settings, and I just find it much
You
easier
were
to navigate.
you were dashing around in there. You were helping me. You were emoting into my computer. And I noticed you were straight in the search, typing, saying, it takes me ages to listen to all those options in the control panel.
Yeah, well, I suppose you kind of learn the layout, right? So again, it's that whole thing of sometimes when you're using a computer, you're not actually listening because you know it's like one tab or shift tab back.
That's right.
Hit enter. You know the cheat code to get you there. You don't need to hear it. So, and that's why I quite like the control panel, because it's almost like the internet of old. It's just simple, headings, buttons, links. That's it. Really, really simple.
The internet of old. We're going back in time, back to dial-up.
Well, yeah, speaking of which, did you hear that news? AOL are shutting down dial-up access for what? The 4 people left who are using it? I mean...
Funnily enough,
what's that about?
This is strange, because I thought exactly... What? Dial-up's still a thing? This is ridiculous. Yeah. What's the top speed of dial-up? 56 kilobits per second or something? I mean, absolutely ridiculous.
Wasn't it 64 by the end? It was something like that.
Maybe.
I remember that I remember you used to buy the modems. It was US Robotics was the one I always remember.
That's right.
You'd buy the US Robotics 56K.
Sportster or something.
That's right.
Speedster.
Go Faster Stripes were on it.
But I thought exactly the same. Well, there can't be any users on that. 160,000 people.
What
is their current user base of that? And
we're talking remote areas, really remote areas.
Well, I mean, it goes to show again. It's that old thing of stuck in our own bubbles. Not everyone has speedy access to the internet, obviously, and rely on dial-up. I would assume it's rural areas, but it still seems very strange. You think at that speed. And with today's internet, what could you possibly use that for? But,
well, I mean, I remember trying to download an image.
Steady.
Well, I mean, obviously,
buses.
Yes, that's right. A big, huge double-decker bus.
Okay, calm down.
Probably was actually. Now I think about it. Yeah, sad as that is.
It would load from the top deck down, wouldn't it? This was annoying.
You'd see the wheels by Christmas if you were lucky. It was
just sat there waiting for the wheels to show up, Stephen Scott.
And the computer, you couldn't do anything. I remember actually, because I think anyone of a certain age will know that, especially when I was a kid, I say maybe a kid in my mid-teens, that's when I had access to the internet for the first time via dial-up. And my mum would sit on the phone to her friend, and she would talk for like 3 hours. And then at the end of the call, and I'd be going in sort of periodically every half hour. Any chance you could, wrap this up? And you can imagine the reaction to that. No, go away.
Yeah.
I'm talking to my friend. And the thing that always got me about those calls with my mum was every time she'd get to the end of the call, before she'd hang up, she'd always say the same thing to her friend. She'd say, okay, lovely talking to you. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm like, you just talked for 3 hours.
All right.
What are you going to talk about tomorrow?
Calm down.
And now it's 10 o'clock at night and I need to download a picture of a bus. And so I'd go on, and I was only allowed 5 minutes because it costs so much money to connect into the internet then.
Used to have timers, software timers, because it was, 2p a minute or something, and then
that's right.
Dropped down. I remember the days. If only we had the sound effect. I mean, it was...
I know.
Back, FreeServe and Screaming Net were the two free dial-up services.
FreeServe, yeah, I remember that.
Over here in the UK, but
there was AOL as well, because people had. I remember you connect
to get
to AOL.
the CDs all the time.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And I quite liked the idea of AOL. I think it was because it was American. It all sounded quite cool.
American Online, wasn't it?
And I remember you would connect, and I remember I think my girlfriend at the time had AOL, and every time she connected to it, it would, as soon as it connected, it would say, "You've got mail."
Yes.
And it was me. I always loved that. I loved that. I was like, where are you getting those mail from? I don't get email. It's just rubbish.
Aren't you amazed that dial-up still exists?
I had no idea it was a thing. I thought that had long gone.
I thought
I'm amazed at the numbers of people you're saying who are still using it.
Yeah, I saw that on a news channel on YouTube, on TechLinked from Linus. They were saying 160,000. I thought that really blew me away. Because like you, I thought, well, it's probably hundreds at most.
I thought 4. Honestly, I thought there's no one left using this.
Well, some places now, there's technologies that superseded it, such as satellite, obviously, even long distance Wi-Fi transmitters now. So I'm just really surprised that it's still needed. But obviously it is. But I mean, what do those people do?
Well, Starlink, heard of that? I mean, that's not a bad option for a lot of people in that situation. I mean, it depends, of course, if you live in a cave, that might be a problem, but...
Well, I wonder what the cost is, though. I mean, is dial-up actually more expensive now, or is it virtually free?
Well, that's the two options, isn't it? You can either cut the service entirely or just make it so, expensive that people can't use it.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the value is in having it anymore. But obviously, look, this is partly... there's a push away from using the copper wires that have been in our streets and towns and villages for many, many years, and move away from that. And gradually they've been upgrading. I mean, obviously it takes a long time to do. A country like the UK, for example, is much easier to do because it's a much smaller country. Yes, there are still pockets where, if you go into the Highlands of Scotland, for example, you're probably not going to get fast fibre access. But that's probably where a lot of people are using either, a low... a cheaper broadband or a lower megabit broadband.
Yes.
Might in some
Megabit.
cases. Yeah, well, maybe you're getting 2 megabit, right? I mean, it could be as low as that. I know people are still on sort of 2 or 3 megabit connections in some areas.
Yeah.
That's really low. I mean, they say that I can't remember what the minimum is, but I think for Netflix the minimum is 3. I think that's right. So that gives you an indication of what you need to get things like streaming working. So there's friends I've got who, for example, don't have any access to those things. Like, have never had Netflix. That blows my mind.
How do they live? Yeah, but I mean, when I think of the internet as a necessity, which it is classed as now, I think of it more as communication, right, and browsing the web. If I want to online
it's not watching Netflix.
It's not watching Netflix. It's not downloading whatever.
But you know what it's like though. It's like that's true. It is about communication. It is about making calls or having access to internet services to provide whatever you might need.
Yeah.
But once you've got the access, what are we doing? We're not just sitting using it for those purposes. I mean, as soon as you get super fast broadband, no one says, "Well, that's good now. I can check in and check my prescription at the doctor."
No, of course not. But
of course, you're going to be jumping onto Netflix. The kids are going to be learning, how to use the PlayStation online. Because that's how it's going to go.
But the irony is,
they don't already know.
If you live in one of those more remote areas, then actually getting to a place physically can be much more difficult, and you may rely on internet access. My doctor, for example, in order to make an appointment, I've got to fill in an online triage form. So even if you go there, you can't. It's got to be done online.
That's interesting.
We're really starting to see where these services are coming in, where it is online is your only option now. So I think it is important. Maybe there just needs to be more investment in rural area internet access.
Well, it sounds like that's what they're trying to do. I mean, I hope that those people who are stuck on dial-up are actually having an alternative option. I mean, you'd like to think. I mean, and you also think if there was an option, though, wouldn't they have jumped on it by now?
Yeah.
Depends who the customers are. It depends where they are, what they're doing. I mean, not much, I would imagine.
Some people that just stick with what works and what they know, right? Just don't change it. They're not that interested in it. As long as they can get their email, they're fine.
Yeah, true.
Anyway,
interesting.
Old times.
Did you hear about Zoom, by the way? Did you hear Zoom's getting an update with spatial audio features?
Okay. Sell it to me.
Well, actually, the article I read, funnily enough, suggests that this was good for accessibility, which I thought was an interesting way to look at it. But really, it was pitched around the idea of getting away from Zoom fatigue. So many people are spending... I mean, I know I worked in an office for many years. Especially when the pandemic started, the rise in Zoom meetings, for some people, it's an everyday, all-day occurrence. They are just sitting there on Zoom all day. And you know what? I think after a while, and trust me, when you've done these meetings, as I have, it gets a little bit tiring after a while. And sometimes I think it's just literally because you have these voices coming at you from, all over the place, but literally just dead in front of you all day. And I think the idea of the spatial audio is that it kind of puts people in a place. So you just wear a pair of regular headphones and suddenly you have people coming to you from left, right, straight ahead, whatever.
Awful. Malcolm from Accounts whispering in my right ear. No,
I remember when it came in on Microsoft Teams, and I actually thought it was quite good. Yeah, Malcolm in Accounts. But no, I think, honestly, it's a really useful thing, and it does wake up a call a little bit.
Question.
Yes. You don't have to look at them though. You don't have to look at them like look left. When
Good, that's lucky.
You don't have to do that.
Accessibility. How's that? What's that got to do with accessibility?
Well, again, I think it's about, if it's talking about fatigue, I think that the story is really around you're kind of...
That's a push.
It's a bit of a push, if I'm honest. Yeah, I don't know if I'd say it's and accessibility. But some people might. I mean, there's people with neurodivergency who might say, well, this is about...
That's true. That's true, actually.
Again,
yeah, okay, I'll take
from
it
a
back.
blind point of view, maybe not so much. Although, I don't know. Is there something in that?
I must say, when I hear about spatial audio, I'm always a little bit... Yeah, I'm only really interested when I'm watching a movie, right? I don't really care about anything else.
No, you're not. You hate it, and you turned it off, you said.
Shut up. But I will say that in Clubhouse, I thought I was really impressed by spatial audio.
Yeah.
It sounded really good. So, yeah, I think if it's done well, yeah, okay, cool.
We got to talk about the big story of the day, though.
Do we? I don't want to.
Do. We do. So, while we were away, although we weren't away because we were here, obviously,
Yes.
it might be a bit confusing, but for us, we've been away a few
cables.
days, knee-deep in
Yes.
cables and computers, yeah. We had the news break about JAWS, Vespero, in the UK, working with their distributor, Sight and Sound Technology, to bring JAWS pricing, new JAWS pricing to the UK and a subscription model to the UK. Finally. And a lot of us have been looking forward to this for a very, very long time. We've been hoping for the home annual license to arrive. And sadly, that it didn't arrive. But it did, if that makes sense.
No.
And I hate to say it, but if you are easily confused, I guarantee you this conversation is not going to make it any easier for you. This has been a very confusing time. So I actually put together a very quick episode for Double Tap Extra with Stuart Lawler, who joined me from Sight and Sound Technology. We both got together on the morning of the announcement to bring listeners up to date. And I think all we really did was confuse the issue even more, because I was totally confused, and there were things that even Stuart wasn't 100% on. So
Yes.
in the end, we actually pulled the episode because it was not really clear at all. And I have to say, it's not that we made it worse. I don't think it was particularly great in the first place in terms of the information that was available. So one particular piece of information that I gave out in that extra podcast, which has now been deleted, is that I was reading it, and I was reading a press release on the front page of the Sight and Sound website. There was more information inside the website, but I was reading the information, which, to be perfectly honest and fair to myself in this, should be the same information in both places, right? I mean, I don't imagine it should be that complicated that I need to read 3 different web pages to get the same info. But one particular thing that stood out was first off, the cost of the annual license. So you buy an annual license, there's no monthly payment option. So you have to pay up front £420, I think it is, for a year of JAWS. Now, first off, let's just stop for a second and just think about this. In the US, there is a JAWS home annual license.
Well done. You got to really think about it.
You will have to bear with us on this because it is incredibly complicated. And I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of do know because we did have Vespero on. We had Ryan and Matt join us to explain how this system works in the US. But the translation to the UK has made it even more complicated because you have the home annual license. You have the home license in the US as well, which is different.
Yep, that's confusing.
That's confusing, and clearly that needs to be renamed because it's not the license that we think it is. That's $623, by the way, per year. That is not the home annual license, which is not available via the website, although it may well be, that may well have changed by now. They keep saying it's going to reappear on the website, but you have to call up to get it. You can't get it through the website or through, directly through the website. You can't just go online and purchase it. You've got to call up Vespero. That has created a lot of tension, because people are not happy that they have to call up.
Yeah, it's either available or it's not.
Well, it's available, but you've got to call up. That's the thing, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Because there's concern, I think, and this is what was raised with Matt and Ryan, was that there was concern that there were people using this or buying this in who really should have been buying either the enterprise version or the home version, but again, not the home annual license. I mean, it's so confusing. My head is bursting with this news.
Yes.
So let's bring it to the UK. What's happened here is we have a home license, which is not a home annual license.
No.
Because that is only available via the web portal, which you only get through the phone call by calling Vespero.
In the US.
In the US only.
Yes.
And that's not available in the UK now. That's not available here. For whatever reason, you cannot get that particular license. So that's, I think, remind me again of this pricing. It's so confusing, but I think it's it's between $100 and $120, something like that.
That's right. Yeah,
I keep seeing numbers flying around, but it's something around that price. That's per year, and for me, that is what I would consider to be a good price. I think that's a good price for a home user, someone like me or you, who decided we want to have JAWS at home. We might have JAWS at work through access to work or through a government scheme or whatever, or through the employer buying the license, or maybe it just being available to us. But that's enterprise, that's different. So if you've got JAWS at work and you come home and you want to have it in your own computer, you can't bring your work license home unless you're bringing your work computer home. So if you want it on your own computer at home, you're going to have to buy it. For me, that 100 or 120, whatever it is, dollars per year, that's a good number.
Yeah, we all got very, very excited. Hey, this is great. Yeah, we thought that was fair and reasonable.
Yeah. And then when it came to the UK, or at least it was coming to the UK, we were kind of hoping, and perhaps we got complacent about it, but we hoped the same thing would happen here. We'd get exactly the same option. That hasn't arrived in the UK. And instead, the only option that we now have, although apparently it's not the only option.
Calm down now. Go steady.
This is what I mean. It's so confusing. I feel like I am stepping on glass going through this because it's just so confusing. There are two options available, and I'm going to stop there because I am so confused by this.
Yeah.
That I can't even promote what they have on sale because I don't even understand it. I don't understand the options. I hear about SMAs, which last time I checked, I thought was baby milk.
Yes,
but apparently it's not.
I remember that. System maintenance agreement.
Yeah, which is a license you pay to get an upgrade to the next edition of JAWS. So if you were on JAWS 2024 and you wanted to move up to 2025, you'd pay an SMA, and sometimes you would get an SMA for a year, or you could get 3-year options. I did it a couple of years ago. I did it, and I got a 3-year one, and there was a discount during Site Village, and I managed to get that.
Well, that's what a lot of people used to wait for. These conferences.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of us held on for that.
Yeah.
Because actually, when I got mine, it worked out, at the time, it worked out about £100 a year. So I was paying up front, say 300, whatever it was, pounds. It worked out roughly £100 a year. So I thought, that's a bargain, actually. I'm getting 3 years of updates for that £300, and actually I'm getting that for £100 a year. So it actually fell in line with the home annual license.
Again,
now, I don't understand if that's going to continue. But I'm told it might. And then I'm reading that we're moving towards subscription. And it's just like, seriously, guys, you got to figure this out. Because this is not sensible to me. I don't understand. I don't understand what I'm buying. I don't understand what I'm paying for. I don't understand how much I'm paying. And I feel like at every turn, there's like, oh, well, you see, what you should have done is done this. If you'd bought this, you'd get it for less than that.
That's right. Yeah.
And then the one that threw me completely was the 3 year. So there was a 2-year, a 1-year license.
1 year.
This is the home license. 1 year, a 2 year, and a 3 year. It said 3 years, 385, and that's pounds in the UK. And I'm thinking, oh, that's brilliant. That's what, £120 a year? That's a great deal.
Yes.
So I said this on the show, and Stuart at the time was like, yeah, and he didn't correct me on it. He didn't. I don't think he fully realized he was still coming to grips with the information in front of him. And so afterwards, people were getting in touch with me saying, no, you've read this wrong. It's not £120 a year. It's $385 per year for 3 years, which, by the way, you got to pay up front. And I'm like,
a whole lot.
What?
Yeah. I look, this needs simplifying. The pricing structure is just so out of whack. And I totally understand about the, making sure that businesses, enterprise, the workplace pays for the correct product and, doesn't try to get around it, get a cheaper home license or whatever. But it feels like the end user is suffering in order to sort of try and accommodate that. And I don't think that should be the case. I think this should be so much easier. You've only got to look online since this announcement. There is a huge, and I mean huge, backlash to this. And,
I mean, aside the confusion, the pricing is shocking. I mean, it really is shocking.
Is it? Because
for home users,
JAWS has always been.
No. I get that. No. I'm not. Again, I'm not talking about enterprise. I think there is an absolutely. Look, we got to take a break. Let's take a short break. We'll come back. What I mean by that is we got to tell you what's how to get in touch with the show, because I'm sure you'll have a view on this and you'll want to chime in on it. Here's how to get in touch.
Get in touch with Double Tap. Email feedback at doubletaponair.com. Leave us a voicemail at 1-877-803-4567. And now you can send an audio or video message to us on WhatsApp. That number is 1-613-481-0144.
Okay, we're back. So look, I'm with you on the enterprise or the business pricing, right? Because I think there is an argument to be said, and I think Vispero have made this argument, that, obviously there's a lot of things they're doing. They want to implement new features, keep up to date, do all that stuff, and it costs money. And I've said for years that business pricing and consumer pricing are two very different things, right? I've said this about all kinds of products. I've said it all along. And I think that, obviously there are oftentimes more expensive products for business than there are, or government, than there are for the consumer. But what's happened in the UK specifically here is that the home license that is being sold is, I think, being sold at business pricing. Because the same license, the same equivalent, when you actually look at the pricing and you go to the US, the home license that is not the home annual license, the home license, which is bought by those kind of people in the middle, I guess those people who are, I still don't really understand it. I know we had the conversation about it. I still don't really understand who buys it, but not me, right? I'm not the one buying that license, okay? Apparently in the US. That's $623. Now, you boil that over to UK pounds, that's kind of roughly $420.
Yes.
Give or take, right? It's very similar in terms of pricing. So when I'm looking at that license in the US, the one I'm told, no, you don't want that one, you want the home annual license, because that's the cheaper one, that's the one I would pay. I'm looking here, of course, that option doesn't exist. And now I'm paying the same price as the one that I wouldn't buy in the US. This is the confusion for me. So I get it in terms of business. I get that there needs to be cost increases. We're always going to argue that. And whether it's a good price, whether it's a bad price, whether it's more. But I think when it comes to the home user, I feel a bit let down here. And I don't really understand why I feel let down, because it seems to me that one of the arguments that was made in the conversation we had with Matt and Ryan was that the reason they do this as a distributor model is because of localization.
Yeah.
I can understand. So, you can't get the support, you can't get the whatever. I don't understand why, if there's a web portal which allows you to buy the home annual license and maintain it and whatever else, why that can't be available worldwide, but the support is given by local distributors. It feels like they've tied these two things together, and I don't get it. Because, even if someone's calling up from, let's think Australia, you just have to call, you'd have to figure out, if the only way to do it is that they have to call in US hours, so be it. I've bought stuff from the US before. I've bought stuff from US companies.
Yeah.
And, I can only...
Yeah,
but the point is that I understand that if it's look, it happens in the UK all the time. There are UK businesses who sell abroad, and, for whatever reason, they can't offer 24-hour support. They don't have the resources for that. So they say, look, if you want to call us, you're going to have to call us in UK hours. So be it.
Yeah, well, the example was more given that it's for non-English speaking support as well, which again, I totally understand. But even that could be offered as a add-on, right?
Or could that be done through the distributor who then has the link in with the web portal?
Yeah.
It's basically what we're saying here is, can we open up this web portal to make it available perhaps through distributors? Look, that is possible, right? It must be doable.
Well, I just don't...
Because that would open this up to all these regions and areas who want access to it.
Digital distribution handled by the developer themselves, in this case, Vispero. That should be... The software should be a standalone core element of it. And if you want to add, hey, I want support for this, add it on. And that could be handled by a third party, by the distributor or whatever you want to call it. At that point, I just third-party tech support, to be honest.
Yeah.
And the enterprise just carries on as a bundle as it is. But yeah, look, this is something that's dogged JAWS for as long as I can remember. It's always been about the pricing. But this confusion and this almost two-tier, it's more than that, it's more like 7-tier, but this two-tier of, hang on, everyone's looking to the US now and saying, well, how is that annual license that different when it comes to the cost? It just doesn't seem fair, right?
Now, look, I know there's people who will say, oh, look, there's NVDA. Or, you know what, there's narrator. Narrator's good enough these days, or NVDA, right? And that is definitely something I'm seeing in the forums. People who are saying, you know what, I'm going to go and figure out NVDA. But I'm also seeing people, and I spoke to someone last week who was in exactly this position where he said, I've used JAWS for so long.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could switch to another screen reader like NVDA. Now, there are a lot of similarities between the two. And it was interesting to see NV Access post out on Mastodon the other day a switch to NVDA from JAWS Guide, which I think is really clever, actually, because
they don't miss a trick. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's obviously existed for a long time. That's not new.
Nope.
But I think a very clever thing to put out there right now, because there are home users who are going to be saying, I don't know if I can afford this. In the UK especially, right? I mean, in the US, you've got the home annual. That's great. But I'm sorry, personally, I can't afford that per year. And I certainly can't afford, even on that 385, times 3, not divided by 3 as I first thought, which would have been amazing, although it would have made the 420 seem ridiculous.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's when I thought about it afterwards, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. But then now I'm realizing it's actually times 3, and you got to pay it up front. That to me is just, that's not feasible. That's not feasible. Now look, again, I want to say this as well, because again, I'm so confused by this.
Yes,
stuff.
that's just what I was going to say.
I feel things may change in this. There may be some changes, and I'm not saying that for any other reason than just because there's been such a backlash about this, that we may see some options appear. I'd love to see, for example, I'd like to see monthly payment options. I'd like to see not having to pay the 385 up front, times 3, I mean, up front. I'd like to see that over the 3 years.
Which is what? How much is that? That's 900, that's like 1,100, 1,200
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
To pay at once for, basically you're locking yourself into a 3-year minimum contract.
Yeah. No, that's fine if you want that.
Not really, I suppose, but yeah, 3 years.
Yeah, well, you're locked in the sense that you've paid the money, you may as well use it.
Money.
It would be pointless to switch to NVDA a week later, right?
Yeah, it was a bit unfair to say
you're going to
be, but yeah.
Yeah, but you're going to be making a decision to stick with JAWS at that point. And a lot of people will be doing it for that reason. I just think at the price level that it's at, it is very difficult for, I'd imagine, a lot of people. I mean, how many times do we sit here and say, the cost of assistive technology is through the roof? How do home users afford this stuff? And we talk about price all the time. And then this comes along. I cannot think of a justification for the cost. And I'm talking personally here, right? I mean, you might find a justification for it in your life, and you may say, look, I can't live without JAWS. I need it. As a home user, I need it. That's fine. If you've got the money to buy it and you want to spend it, good for you. Go for it. But I think for a home user like me, I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to do that upgrade. I'm not going to do it. I'm learning. I've been playing with NVDA for the last 3 days.
Yeah. But, right, okay, I've seen a lot of people villainizing Vispero about this, right? Do they have an obligation to make this affordable for everyone?
Well,
if their business is saying, we cannot sustain this, if we do not put this price point in place, then it's not worth doing.
So again, I think that's where the point is perhaps missed. The home annual license in the US exists.
Yes.
I want that option here.
Yes.
If I had that option here, I'm happy with the pricing at the other levels.
And it's really difficult to get away from that. If that wasn't there,
that's it. That's all it is for me.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Right? Because I understand that, I mean, look, Vispero has brought in a lot of AI features into JAWS and Zoomtext as well, but more so JAWS. And this affects Zoomtext as well, obviously. These prices affect Zoomtext. They affect, if you want Fusion, which is, of course, both JAWS and Zoomtext. So these prices affect all of them. I know we tend to focus on JAWS, but it affects all of these products. I understand that this company needs to make money. I understand it. Look, I guess the bigger question is, can we imagine a world without JAWS in it? I don't know if I like the idea of that world. I don't want a world where JAWS doesn't exist. I mean, I made the flippant remark, I think, last week when I said, why doesn't Microsoft just buy them? And the more I think about it, I think this might not be a bad idea. Microsoft just buys out Vispero, implements it all into, Windows. There you go. Problem solved,
default
right?
Windows. Narrator goes away. We now get JAWS built in. But then aren't we back
Best screen reader
to...
you could have. We're all happy.
Well, aren't we back to the Apple situation where voiceover is your only choice? Isn't it better to have more options out there? That's why I love Windows.
Well, I'm not saying get rid of things. I'm not saying get rid of NVDA. I'm just saying if JAWS became part of Microsoft, again, it would be a choice, right? The same way that you can choose right now between Narrator, which is built in, or NVDA, or JAWS.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I forgot about Narrator. I suppose so.
We always do. That's the problem. Or Dolphin. Goodness me, how many times do we get shouted at for not mentioning Dolphin?
Yeah,
and their
rightfully
products.
So. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's another option right there, which is, again, we've got to think about that. And I think for a lot of home users, Dolphin's very popular.
Yeah, but
it's
what's the price point?
As well.
Let's be fair. We always come back to that. Oh, we didn't mention Dolphin. Aren't we terrible? What's the price point of Dolphin? Last time I looked into Dolphin, that was quite expensive too.
Yeah, but again, I think the difference there, and look, I don't know the pricing, so I'm not going to comment on it, but what I will say is that whether or not it's the same price, whether it's on parity with JAWS, whatever, there is an option. There are options out there. And this is a good thing. This is the good thing about this right now, because if people are worried, if people are concerned, you've got a JAWS license, you've been using JAWS for years, you're kind of worried that this is going to go away. And I understand that fear. There are options, and it is maybe time to get yourself at least aware of software like NVDA, like Narrator. I'd argue more NVDA, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because they're very similar in many ways. They're very similar, and the leap is not quite as far as you might think.
And to be fair, Narrator as well. And
they certainly brought it in line, because oftentimes a lot of the commands, the standard commands that JAWS has,
it's replicated.
Using the insert key, like if you're on a web page and you go to insert F7, for example, to bring up a list of links, that's across the board now, right? That's across all of the screen readers, all three of them.
Yeah, and a lot of keyboard shortcuts are the same as well, because JAWS set the standard. It's the granddaddy of them all. So
that's right.
They all modeled a lot of their keyboard shortcuts specifically for that reason, so it's familiar feeling. So yeah, I don't know. It just needs cleaning up. It needs clearing up. It's just too confusing. It reminds me of Ira, when they launched their pricing plans, and it was platinum, silver, 4-star, 3-star. It was just what, it's too much. I just don't know where. It's too confusing, and I feel the same way here. And a lot of the names that they use are so similar that, okay, so that's a home license, but that's a home annual license.
Yeah. There's two options. One is home, and the other one is home.
Yeah,
that's not confusing at all. No, not confusing at all. Or if you're in the UK, you only get home, which is not the home you want, because we don't have that home. You get the other home.
Sweet home.
Oh my Lord, I am so confused by it.
And everyone is.
So confused.
Everything I'm reading online, the forums and everything, it's just so much confusion, and people are correcting other people, and then other people go back, no, that's not right. This needs to be so much simpler to understand.
So the question is, what comes next? And we are going to be talking to Sight and Sound again very soon. We are going to talk to them because they are, of course, the distributor in the UK. And we'll get Stuart Lawler back on to hopefully give us a much clearer picture of what's going on. I can say that, there's a lot of discussion going on within Sight and Sound at the moment around this. And I imagine conversations between them and Vispero to try and come up with either clearer messaging or whatever, comes out of this. It may well be that it's just tidied up, who knows. But I think it needs to be addressed. This needs to be sorted out, because the messaging here is a mess, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't think this will, I'm not concerned in any way that this will do reputational damage long term, because I think if the right solution is brought out, people will quickly get in line with this. Because, JAWS is a tried and tested product. It's not like we're, unsure of the product here. We know what it is. We know what its capabilities are. We know how good it is. So we're not concerned about the product here. But what I think, and the reason I think a lot of people are so angry is because they want to access it. And, there's another side to this, which I think no one really talks about very much, because it's often forgotten in the mix of this. The people who say, just switch to NVDA. And there's a lot of that. You see it online. Just switch to NVDA. There you go. Problem solved. The problem is, if you work every day using JAWS and you come home, I don't want to have to think constantly about, hang on a minute, if I'm doing it this way on this screen reader, it's different, so I do it this way. I just want to use the same thing. I want to use the same software.
Yes.
Now, look, I know there's people who, I remember once getting an email from someone who said they bought a Mac because they hated using a Windows PC in the office and they kind of wanted to break away from it. Remember that? They wanted to break away.
Yeah.
I get that as well, right? I do get that. But I think when it comes to, for someone like myself, my brain is not what it used to be when it comes to this stuff. I want to learn one thing and I want to use one thing. At the beginning, I remember when I was starting out in the screen reader world, when I started using JAWS, I was into NVDA, I was into VoiceOver, I was into ChromeVox. I had, computers running virtual machines that were running, like 3 different screen readers all over the place. I was having a great time. And then I realized something. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I'm so confused by all these commands that I need to learn, and that's different on this one, and it's different over here, and it doesn't quite work like that on this, but if you use that, it's different. Honestly, I just want to use one thing. So I have been spending a bit of time, for me anyway, I've been spending a bit of time on NVDA.
You have.
And I'm actually, I remember I never really really understood NVDA. I suppose I'm kind of where, I don't know, I think about the guy I met last week who was saying he was quite nervous about going to NVDA or even thinking about it. And I was there at one point. I wouldn't switch it on. It just felt alien to me turning it on.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I think initially it was because of that whole, was it the eSpeak voices at the beginning they had?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It just felt weird. It just sounded weird. It was a different layout. And then you talked me through it. You kind of got me to grips with it. And then I realized, actually, this is not that different.
No.
And I'd say, I don't want to say it's simpler because it's not. It's not simpler. But I think there's an easier learning curve into it than perhaps there is with JAWS. JAWS is a huge beast of a product. I mean, if you go into the settings center of JAWS,
yeah,
you could. I was in the catacombs in Paris, which are snakes of tunnels all underneath Paris, where the bodies were buried of plague victims back in the day. An amazing place to visit, by the way. Extremely tactile, but maybe not the way you might want. And terrifying in many, many ways, but an amazing visit. I found that easier to navigate than the settings center in JAWS.
I've got to say, I find exactly the same thing when I was trying it out. It just feels like this should be much simpler, much clearer navigation layout. But hey, I suppose it's what you get used to, right?
Yeah, and people will say to me all the time, "Oh, it's really simple. You just do insert space, then O, then P, then D, and C." Sorry, what? And it's like, if you know it, that's great. And once you learn it, you'll learn it. But it's like, it's that initial thing of just, I really want this to be a simple onboarding, a simple learning curve into this, so I can access the most amount of features that I'm going to use. And
but that's another thing, though. What features do you use? Again, I always come back to tab and arrow keys.
I know you say this all the time. I know.
Yes, I do. Yes, because it's true for most people. I mean, I will admit I am using the object navigation mode a lot more now to get all of the information on a dialog box or whatever it may be. But even that is pretty similar across the board when it comes to screen readers. So I don't know. I don't know how many of these extra features people actually use. Mainly because lots of people just don't know they're there.
Well, I think of it a little bit like the Amazon Echo and the Google Home, right? Mm-hmm. So if JAWS is the Google Home, then NVDA is the Echo. And what I mean by that is that the key difference I find is that the NVDA has the add-on store. And so there's features in there. There's things that I can go and say, oh, that sounds like a really cool thing. I'd quite like to use that. I'll add on and then I'll learn about it. And so I can learn what the commands are to make it work. I can, disable it if I don't like it. I can bring it back if I like it, whatever. With JAWS, it's all built in. It's all there. And you got to go looking for it. You got to kind of seek it out. The feature set isn't quite as obvious up front to me. I think that's the problem I have with JAWS, is that I love it, and there's lots of things I do love about it. But, it's a little bit like the feature's in there. If you go hunting for it, you'll find it. Or you need to know a certain kind of secret layer of commands to get to it.
You say that, but they've put so much work into those tutorials under the help section.
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah, I know.
Now.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, they're in between a rock and a hard place.
There's so much in it, right? And it's because it has so much. And I know people will be listening to this saying, oh, come on, they've put, as you say, all the work into the tutorials, and they've made it as accessible as they can. And of course, it's all fully accessible and all the rest of it. But I just mean, when I go into the settings, I just feel lost And so I don't go in there, right? I never go into the settings center because I think I just cannot figure this out at all.
It took me an hour to find out how to make the caps lock key, the modifier key, instead of insert.
Well, it was things like, so you go in there, and I think if I remember rightly, so you go in and say you wanted to turn off screen echo, right? For example, you go into a search box, you type in screen echo, you tab to a list of results, you got F6 to get to the thing. It's like, I wouldn't do that in any other dialog box. Why am I using F6? And so suddenly you're having to learn to navigate this settings center. Again, once you know it's fine.
Yeah, that's
But it's that thing of initially, it's not, I mean, I went into the add-on store. I hadn't been in the new one for a long time. And I was navigating through it, installing stuff. It was all very simple, very clear, very obvious. And I felt, actually, this is cool. This is great. And I was getting to specifics and things that I was looking for. And I thought, this is actually really nicely laid out. Now, of course, it's maybe not as full a program as JAWS is. It doesn't have as maybe a wide spread of things in it, of features in it, of depth that perhaps NVDA has. Or sorry, JAWS has.
JAWS has. Well, maybe that's why it's worth the extra money for JAWS.
I don't doubt it is. Again, I'm not arguing the cost of the licenses that are out there.
Then what are you arguing?
I'm arguing that
Scott?
I want the same license as they've got in the US.
Yes, that's all we're saying. We
That's
want
it.
it cheaper. Is basically what we're saying.
No, it's not. I don't want it cheaper. I
You
want the
do.
same. No, I don't. I want the same license available in the US. It's already there.
Yes.
I want that. I don't care what the cost is or the equivalence of the dollar. It's available in one country. Why can't I get it here? It makes no sense.
They got to
no
ship it over.
Sense.
Container costs, P&P.
I mean, I could. Here's the thing, right? I could find a friend who'd be willing to let me use their address so I can sign up via their address in the US if I wanted to.
I'm distancing myself from this remark.
But that's how ridiculous this is.
And that's what people are doing as well. Let's not sugarcoat this.
Yeah.
People are doing that. If they got friends in the US, can you get me the annual license? Because why wouldn't you? Let's be fair. If it's available for a digital product. Anyway, we're getting into the area of repeating ourselves. Yeah, it's interesting times. Should we put it nice like that?
Well, we're going to hopefully get an update on all this from Sight and Sound. We'll see what happens. Again, I think a lot of conversations are going on in the background to figure this all out. So let's just hope that comes to some fruition.
You mentioned reputational damage, by the way. I saw a lot of shade being thrown towards Sight and Sound as well on this. And they don't have too much to say, I would have guessed anyway, too much to say about the pricing on here. They're simply
Well, they won't control the pricing, will they? It's Vespero that makes the decision on pricing.
Yeah.
Again, I think we also have to be careful here. We don't all lose the head too much in terms of what we throw towards companies. I want this fixed, but I don't. It's not like I feel heads should roll as a result of this or any of that nonsense. No. I hate when that nonsense starts because it doesn't solve anything. Look, we can all start beating our chests about it if we want, and of course on social media people will. That's what they do. But I just think we've got to maybe take this with a little bit more. Let's just place this in the. It's important, but life doesn't end.
I think this is a start of a negotiation. To be honest, I'm sorry, a lot of people aren't willing to pay that price you're offering. I'm sorry, when that other, again, comes back to the US home manual license, I'm sorry, but I'm just not willing to do that.
Well, that's what the market does.
We'll have to see how that goes. It could be the case that people are saying that, and at the end of the day, it doesn't make any impact to JAWS sales whatsoever. People are actually still paying that money, so they won't care.
Well, again, if the business from the government and the education or the employment side, covers the costs with these increases, even with the increases, it covers the costs. It brings things back to where they need it to be at Vespero. Then, the home manual license may not be worth too much. I would say though, that there would be, I think, a little bit of reputational damage if they pulled it. And they haven't done that, obviously. It's available in the US. But if they did pull it and say, well, actually, look, we're not going to do it at all because it's too much. We can't do it. So we're just going to stick to you have the home license, which is whatever it costs, $420 a year. In the US, it's $623. That's it. That's your choices. If you're a home user, for everyone else, these are the costs for business and all the rest. I think that would create some reputational damage. I think making this available for home users is important. And, we should be in a place where we can internationalize this in some way. It might just need some broader thinking, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's where I'm at with it. But look, I mean, let's see what happens. So if you leave this episode more confused than where we started last week when we posted that episode, which I did pull because I thought, you know what, there's no point leaving this out there.
Because it just adds to the confusion.
It's adding to the confusion, and we're not helping anyone. We were confused. Sight and Sound was confused at that point, at least represented by Stuart Lawler. So, and that's no shade on him. He was getting this information as we were going to air.
We're trying to make sense of the information we were given. Yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I just don't think it was very sensible information.
Oh,
it wasn't.
Scott.
Well, it wasn't. That's what I said all the way through.
Okay. Oh.
Sorry, have I shocked you?
Yes, you're a shock jock.
You clearly not been listening for the last hour.
No, I tuned out.
But anyway, we're back. We're going to get into all some big news coming up this week, some cool stuff happening this week. We'll share more on that as the week goes along. Let's just say stay tuned.
Yes.
It's going to be an interesting week. Get your hands on your credit cards.
Spend some money.
Maybe time to spend a few dollars. We shall see. But yeah, plenty to talk about this week on the show. And of course, we've got what we've got this month. We've got the Google event coming up.
Oh, yes, of
August
course.
20th.
That's on the 20th. Yeah. What are you expecting to see? A new Pixel 10?
Don't care. But we'll catch you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.